Okay, we're starting. My name is Richard Butler. I'm a resident services coordinator over at Walnut Place in Northport. This is Kurt Waneke, who's one of our residents at Walnut Place. Kurt has been on the resident council at Walnut Place for 2 years, just recently re-elected. He's been the treasurer, and I brought him to correct me when I make mistakes about resident councils. I have about 30 years of work in this county. I'm a social worker by training, and as I said, I'm from Texas. And I've traveled the world a bit, but I've been here 30 years. Margie and I worked together at United Way many years ago. I've been with Boulder Housing Partners now for 8.5 years, I think. Started out as the volunteer coordinator, still am that, but I'm also now a resident services coordinator at Walnut Place and Northport. I have some experience with committees over the many years. Margie and I worked at, how many committees we worked with at United Way? I don't know, a lot. So we bring to you some experience. Kurt also has a lot of experience being on boards of directors in the past, as well as his current experience being on Walnut Place's resident council. Kurt also serves on the thing we call the RRC, which is the Resident Representative Council. You'll hear more about that later on. So it gives you a little bit about me and Kurt, and a little bit about Margie, probably you didn't know before. And hopefully this meeting will give you some information about what a resident council is and how to form it, what some of the pitfalls are, what are some of the things you can do, what are the things you can't do. But if you don't remember if you can remember any one thing today, my biggest point with you is that a resident council is a partnership with BHP. And I push that all the time because councils communicate with BHP. It's important that we hear from you as residents, and we want to hear from you about what's going on in the building, what needs to be fixed. This is a new facility. Hopefully there's nothing that needs to be fixed, but I suspect there probably are, knowing new facilities a bit. But partnership is the key word I want to lay with you and leave with you, because it's important that we at BHP work with you, the residents, to make your living here a pleasant experience you enjoy, and a place where you can thrive. Because some of you, this may be the last place you want to live before you see the Great Divide. We don't know, yeah. But we want to make it a great place for you to live, but we need to hear from you. And a resident council is a great way that can happen. Margie, I'm assuming you will kind of be the staff person with the resident council. Do we? Yeah. Probably so. That's what I do at Walnut Place and at Northport. Not all our properties have resident councils. Probably you don't know, but we have over 1,000 units of rental in the city of Boulder. Over 1,000. We're looking always to add more. We're most importantly interested in adding some affordable housing right now. But our mission is to provide housing for low-income families, seniors, and adults with disabilities. Thus, this place for seniors. I work at a senior site, both Walnut Place and Northport. And our purpose is to provide you a place to live in this wonderful town. So we want to hear from you what goes on. Now, a resident council has an important role to play in that partnership. Because it allows you, a certain number of you, to voice to us what's going on, what you're feeling, what you want to see done. It doesn't mean that everything will get done the way you want it to be done. Realize we're the landlord. We own this building, and we want to own this building for the next 50 to 60 years. We want it to be maintained and operate efficiently for you. Kurt can testify that Walnut Place needs a little bit of work. If anybody's seen Walnut Place, it's about 35 years old, maybe something like that. And we will be renovating it soon. So it's important that we hear from you. I have a few documents to pass out. I don't have enough for everybody because we didn't know how many people, welcome, we didn't know how many people were coming. So you may have to share a bit. But let me stop at this point and just ask you if there are any questions so far. You understand why you're here? Okay, great. And let me also say that there's no dumb questions. Please feel free to ask me a question whenever you want to. If I know the answer, I'll do the best I can to answer it. If I don't know the answer, I'll say I don't know, and I'll find out for you. Sometimes there are no answers. Yes?
Yeah, why, this is the first time I've ever experienced this, our mailbox is not the same as our apartment numbers, because I'm not getting a lot
Okay.
of my mail.
I have no answer for that one. Sorry.
That's the screw up.
That's one I can't answer, and you would have to ask either the post office or our management.
No,
So I don't know the answer to that.
We'll ask property management.
Yeah, that's a property management
When I
question.
told you I wasn't getting my mail, I called them again, and they said they sent it, they got the right address, and I didn't get mail for 102.
Okay.
Okay,
Mike-
we'll deal with that.
It's not today's issue.
My suggestion is you write that up. You got using communication forms or some sort?
No, but.
Okay, write it up in just a piece of paper, give it to Margie or give it to Elisa or whatever, yes.
Just as a refresher, maybe we should say, why are we here today?
Why do you think you're here today?
Well, I think we're here to talk about forming a resident council
Okay,
of some sort,
okay,
and what are the dynamics behind that.
okay. There's a sign-up sheet going around, apparently it's been this way, does it need to go this way? Okay.
Again, yeah.
I'm hoping we'll answer your question today. If we don't, let me know. Let me also ask, how many of you have participated in councils like this, or committees, boards of directors of agencies or corporations, nonprofit corporations, churches? There's a whole variety of organizations that use committees of one sort. How many have? Give me a show of hands. Okay, so we got about 7, 8 that have some experience with that. I hope that's been a good experience for you. I served on several at my faith organization, and sometimes it was good and sometimes it wasn't. As I said earlier, I've worked with a lot of committees at United Way and some other organizations. I used to work for Catholic Charities down in Denver. I had a board committee there. So I have some experience with how that works. So if I don't answer your question adequately, we'll keep working at it, okay? Oh, boy.
I think I
You-
have, yeah, there should be enough of those.
Oh, this is something different. This
yeah.
is something that I
Oh,
wrote,
okay.
something that I wrote. You want to run,
Okay.
how many people do we have in the room? There's 5, 10, 21. So,
Only 17, 18 need.
okay. So
Okay,
make 10 or 12 we can share.
okay.
I'll pass it this way.
No, come on. Yeah, I know.
At this point, just take one and try to share it a bit.
I can get it.
We'll pass it this way. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, has a whole section on resident councils, but it really doesn't pertain at this point to this property, because this property is a tax credit property, as I understand it. Now, don't ask me how to define all the different silos that come down from HUD, but because of that, there are different rules that HUD puts forth. So much of this is my experience and what I have worked with in the last several years at Walnut Place about what is a resident council. But what do you think a resident council should be?
A group of residents that help facilitate needs and voice things that are problems and help be a voice between the residents and those that are above. I don't know. Management.
Okay. That's very good. Pretty much hit it on the head. Anybody got any other ideas?
All right, planning parties.
Planning parties. Okay. See where Kurt's heart is.
I'm the treasurer, so I get
He's
to
the
deal with the
How
parties.
about I spelled that wrong, didn't I? Y'all have to pardon me, I'm an old Texas boy, I can't spell worth a hoot.
How do you make money? You give a certain amount every month?
We'll cover that.
yeah.
Oh,
We'll cover something about that
Yeah.
as we get along. Any other ideas about what would you like to see a council do?
I'd like to see them form committees who can take care of some of the jobs we have around here, such as kitchen detail and gardening.
Okay, that's good. Anything else, anybody?
A forum for conflict resolution.
Oh, that's a huge one.
That's a tough one.
You want to give me a little more idea about that?
What was that?
When you say conflict resolution, between whom?
Well, anybody who needs it would be the larger answer. The smaller answers would be between residents themselves, between residents and management, residents and, who knows, neighbors perhaps.
Okay. Oh, I can't read that, but I can. Yeah, okay, good. Anything else? Well, my quickie definition that Margie's going to bring back to you soon is that a resident council is a group of residents living in a BHP housing complex who join together to work in partnership with BHP to provide coordination to resident activities, provide feedback and communication to BHP management and policymakers. Of course, we have a board of commissioners, they're called, and you can provide feedback to them. And in general, create a welcoming and thriving community. Does that encompass some of what this says here? Anybody disagree with that? Realize it's just my definition that I kind of threw together in the last week or so about what I've seen. It doesn't necessarily incorporate this, but certainly could, conflict resolution. Because, has there been any conflict yet?
Yes,
Yes. I figured there had been. There's some. There always is.
whenever there's humans around, there's
Right.
conflict.
There always is. All right, there always is. Okay. And parties certainly is a certain,
So actually, there's enough for, because it's back.
back, oh, well, good deal. Okay, great. So everybody can take one. It's front and back, so take one, it's front and back. Yes, you had a
I
question?
was just thinking that the primary goal is to have communication, positive, primarily between the people that live here, making it a community.
Just speak up a little louder.
Oh, yeah, I just was thinking that a large part of this would be communication between ourselves, making it feel like a community as opposed to just a building where people live. And also between ourselves and the BHP, you know, and whoever else we to get this to be the happiest place on earth, right?
Right. Yeah.
I would add to that, while I see one very important function is to be a partner with management BHP, I think it's also equally important that it is a resident-centric kind of organization where we're dealing with our own issues that need to be dealt with, that don't always deal with management.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we have potlucks here that doesn't necessarily, management doesn't need to be involved with that.
No, right.
And other kinds of things. So we're dealing with two realms.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Makes perfect sense to me. Yes?
Wouldn't members of the resident council interact more closely with management instead of every one of us individually jumping on or asking for help or asking for something?
It really depends on the issue, I think, in my mind. And if you disagree with me, let me know. But like if it's an issue around about the building, say the parking or something, I notice there's no numbers on the, names on the parking spaces out there. Maybe that's a problem for folks. Something like that. Or how the gardens are going to get divvied up between those that want the garden, et cetera. Kurt knows all about that. Some of those issues would be appropriate for the council to talk to management about. Some of those are much more important about for individuals. And the council may want to do that. It could set a committee or a group of people to do that. Some faith communities do that. You know, anybody been a member of a faith community where you had a committee who had tried to help two members of the faith committee find resolution or something? That's a pretty common way of doing things. Okay. Well, I think these are pretty good ideas. I think I encompass those pretty much in my definition there. Does that sound okay to everybody? We're kind of on the same page? Okay? Now, what can a council do? What kind of power does it have? And this goes to your question. I've written 4 things here. There may be more. Provide a common voice to management regarding policy, physical needs of the building, and needs of the residents. So as you were saying, and I forgot your name. Shirley, thank you, Shirley, for reminding me. If there's a whole group of folks that say we need this to happen, let's say you want to change the colors of the hallways, and you want to do that, you need to talk to management about it. The council would be a perfect way to organize that effort and move it forward. Number 2 is to coordinate resident activities such as potlucks, holiday celebrations, programs of interest to residents, and regular communication about these activities. So another kind of thing, Kurt mentioned parties. Walnut Place loves parties, but they plan about 4 a year. They do it all themselves. I rarely help with that. Sometimes I make connections with them for vendors or whatever, but not too often. They mainly do all of that. And they can do other things too. Oversee and manage funds collected from residents and any funds from other sources for purposes listed in number 2. And this goes to your question about funds.
Like, how do you raise them?
Well, that's a whole different question. Let's talk a little bit about first if you had money.
Yeah.
You know, if you had money, you could use that for potlucks, for parties, for buying garden materials, for keeping your kitchen well stocked with paper towel. I mean, with plates and so forth. Paying for food for parties, etc. Not sure what else.
We bring our own food.
Okay, you bring your own food, but you might want to have a potluck at Thanksgiving and buy a turkey.
Oh, yeah.
You know, bring it, and then the funds could be used in that fashion. So there's a variety of ways you could use funds. Yeah.
I'm just thinking that I've had a lot of experience in fundraising, and I think a community like ours would be one that the community,
Sure.
as Boulder, would like to help. And I think it would be very easy to get money for good purposes within our building. And so
Certainly fundraising is an important aspect of that. Y'all haven't done much fundraising, have you?
No, believe it or not, we get a lot of we just have a segregated aluminum can recycling program. And we've got a guy that just loves to stomp on cans, and we make about $200 a year just on our aluminum cans. So we've got a lot of alcoholics over there.
Do y'all have a vending machine area here, Marge?
I
No,
think it'd be a great idea.
no vending machines?
Oh, I hope we,
Because we do it.
Money for our community.
We do
That's
it.
a resident council decision.
Yeah, that's certainly, they do it Northport and Walnut Place and at Canyon Point. And I'm pretty sure at all 3 of those sites, the vendor machine guy splits that or shares some of the proceeds, those profits
We get
with,
$300 a year just from the vending.
yeah, 300 a year. Right.
Oh, that's good, wow.
Yeah, but so,
Doesn't have to have unhealthy things in it.
well, I was talking with the guy the day at Walnut Place and he said he'd try to put more healthy stuff in, but I haven't seen it yet.
It won't sell.
And I believe that BHP will probably, through the RRC, funnel money to you. I think that's going to happen. Currently, BHP has been giving $12 to the RRC, or is it 15?
I can't remember.
It's 15, and then $3 of that goes to each unit and each site with times the number of units.
It's a
So
negligible amount.
it's not a whole lot of money, but again, I mean, you put 200 here, 200 there, 300 there, you might have $800 to $1,000. And then, of course, you could always fundraise if you want to fundraise. Walnut Place used to, when elections were actually had a place you went and pulled the lever, used to have sell baked goods on election day, because Walnut Place was a polling spot where people came, and as people came in, they would sell them baked goods, and they made, it's been a long time since they've done that, but they'd make $50 to $100 on election day. And there's a variety, and then there's a variety of other ways you can do it. I mean, you can ask everybody in the building to contribute $1. You know, you could do a car wash in your parking lot. You know,
Get some Boy Scouts to come over.
right, right. Get some Boy Scouts to do that. Yeah, they might do that.
Canyon Point just did, if I'm sorry to interrupt,
That's right.
but they just did a yard sale, because, you know,
That's
and,
such a good idea.
yeah, and we're gonna try to organize one at Walnut Place, because we have a great big covered entrance with 2 choke points, so nobody can steal stuff. And I've got probably 600 technical and political books that I'm never gonna read again. And I figured, just my book probably gonna make several $100, so. Yeah.
You could also incorporate yourself, your council, as a nonprofit corporation in the state of Colorado. That allows you then to not pay taxes on the things that you buy as a council. You could go also as far to try to get the IRS designation of a 501c3. Anybody know what that means? Okay, some people do. That's a big deal. Can be done, but it's a big application, but it can be done. And then people can donate to you and deduct it off their taxes, and you're more likely to get donations that way. And then there's not necessarily funds, but there are some corporations that will donate food, et cetera, depending on the situation. So that answers your question a little bit, not entirely, but gives you the idea that yes, you can raise funds. You could do that, and it's kind of up to your own imagination as how you would like to do it. The last piece on this about what a council can do, that I've written down at least, is provide 3 representatives to the resident representative council, better known as the RRC, to work in coordination with other BHP residents from other sites. The president of the RRC sits on the Board of Commissioners, which sits on the BHP Board of Commissioners. Therefore, there is a direct voice on the Board of Commissioners from that particular body, and you would have the right to send 3 representatives to the RRC. Kurt's a representative of the RRC. You want to talk about it a minute, or got any comments about it?
Well, quite frankly, it's been total chaos for years.
Now, did I really want you to say that?
I gotta be honest, I've got myself appointed as treasurer of that, and I'm starting to turn the thumb screws down, but, no, we're gonna have to do some reorganization. We have people drift in and out from various startup resident councils, and their councils fall apart, and the people drift away. So we've been kind of in a get acquainted orientation mode now for almost 2 years. And it's going to continue to exist, but it's kind of in chaos right now, I think.
But actually, it has been around for a very long time, over 30 years, and there was a time when it was a very active body and can still be. Our hope is at BHP that it will become a more vibrant group and provide leadership for a lot of things. So that's the other power that you have. And then the other thing is, which I didn't put on here, is that you can stretch your arms and say, can we do this? And we'll tell you whether you can or not, depending on what it is. I mean, if you wanted to add tinted tint to the windows here, you'd have to ask BHP about that. So there are some things that pertain to the building and so forth that have to go through management. There are other things that you can probably do. It mainly has to do with your community and how your community comes together. You can do a variety of community events. You can have programs come in. Margie can help you make contact with a lot of agencies if you want them to come in and talk about that. I've done that over the years at Walnut Place at Northport. So there's a lot of things that you could do. It just depends on your own imagination and your own creativity. So that's kind of that part of it. Any questions, concerns? Yes?
So how many properties does BHP?
Properties.
Okay, let me reframe that.
Okay.
Because there's probably a bunch of single units. So I think a lot of us don't know much about BHP, and this is not here perhaps is the place to do that, perhaps in the general orientation. But just, I'm trying to get a sense of how many properties have a residence council and are part of the RRC.
5.
5.
Oh, that's all, okay.
5. There used to be more.
Yeah. The problem is some of their housing sites don't have any community rooms. And that's made it hard for them to organize something. And so it's just another issue that we're gonna try to deal with.
Yeah.
And
We
they're,
could rent one of ours. We're like-
yeah.
Rent it. I like it.
We got a bus stop right here, right? No, we'll be here.
We have so many nice ones.
Yeah.
That's changing though, that, the fact that, there's gonna be some renovation.
Right. In the next 2 to 3 years, we are renovating all of our public housing properties, of which Walnut Place, Northport, and a few others are. And the main thing, one of the main things we're going to do, besides bringing them up to date in their insides, is to add community rooms or community centers so that people have a place to gather. You guys are incredible, men and women, sorry. You are very lucky to have as many rooms as you have to gather in. It is wonderful. Yes, sir, you had a question.
You referred to Walnut Place and North.
Port.
Port.
Mhm.
To me, that's just a name.
Mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit about what their facilities are and how many they house and what they're, what's going on there? Kind of give me.
Okay, real quickly, I'll do that. Okay, real quickly, I'll do that.
That's all.
Northport has 50 units. It is a 55 and up.
Where is it located?
It's located at 1133 Portland Place. Do you know where the Hungry Toad is over on, okay, just right behind the Hungry Toad is Northport. 50 units. It has, about, I want to say, about 6 or 7 disabled folks, adults with disabilities, 4 of whom are in wheelchairs. We have 4 wheelchair apartments there. And then we have a number of seniors, and we have a number of adults who are under 65 but are disabled, either in some physical fashion or with a mental challenge. That's Northport. Walnut Place has 95 units. It's located at 1940 Walnut. It's a 5-story building. That's where Kurt lives. We currently have 3 couples there. Everybody else are singles. It is a 50 and up unit, so you can be 50 or more, or 50 and older, but you also have to meet some income guidelines. Your income guidelines here are higher than what they are at Walnut Place in Northport, and I don't know what those are because I don't work in management. Canyon Point is another one of our senior sites. It's 700 Walnut, has 82 units. Don't know if there's any couples there now. There used to be, if there are now. Again, but it is a 65 and up unit. And then we have a number of disabled units and senior units spread out amongst the rest of our portfolio. Probably in the neighborhood of around 35 to 40. So some of the family sites will have a single unit or so like that for a disabled or senior there. You ask about how many. I want to say in the neighborhood of 35 properties.
42.
Thank you. My numbers guy. We have 42 properties spread around. And then we have over 650, maybe even 800, what we call Section 8 units, Section 8 certificates. And some of you may be on Section 8, I don't
In
know.
one city, you have all this?
No, they're not all in one city.
Oh.
There are people we even have some folks living in Hawaii, believe it or not. But you can take a Section 8 certificate and move anywhere in the United States. But we have about that many Section 8 certificates. Yes, sir.
Do I understand the Golder Housing Partners you're really a partnership with the city or the county?
Good question. Well, let's start this way. Every city in the state of Colorado who has 50,000 or more people and residents has to have a housing authority by statute. That's state statute. Okay? So towns like Erie and Lafayette and Louisville don't have housing authorities. But Boulder established its housing authority about 40 to 45 years ago. Longmont has one. And then there is a county housing authority that runs out of the county government that does the housing for Erie and Lafayette and Longmont, not Longmont, what's the other one? Louisville. Niwot has some units in it. There's some in the mountain town, Nederland. So they have a lot of units spread around too. So back to my statute thing. So we are a quasi-governmental organization. We are a nonprofit. But you can't donate to us a dollar bill and take it off your taxes because we're not a 501c3. We're a 501c10 or 12 or 28, I don't know what it is. Okay? That helps understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that's what it was.
Yeah. We used to be very closely tied to the city of Boulder, and we still are to some degree, but not quite. Yes, any questions? Do you have a question? Okay, that answers your question. Okay. I want to move now to how to organize a council, and that's one of the big questions I know you want to talk about. And please, ask me lots of questions. I have put on this sheet on the back, how do you organize a council? And this is sort of my thought about it. Need an extra back there? Okay. There are any variety of ways in which you could organize a council, and this is just one that I thought might work for you, but there are a variety of ways you can do it. You raised early on how to get to know each other, and that's an important piece. And that's the first step that I put in this, was say, hold some informal gatherings to learn about each other. You can use, there's all kinds of games you can use to get to know each other. Remember how I started this meeting asking where you were from and that sort of thing? You can do things like that. You can do a whole lot of others. Margie and I used to use a lot of them at United Way. There's booklets on them, and to get to know people. Yeah,
And
Margie.
actually, this group has had several potlucks
Okay.
and, you know.
Okay.
Got,
Days.
you know, get together. for
So how many of you-
things.
Go
Yeah.
ahead. So how many of you know at least 10 other residents now? First names.
What?
How many of you know at least 10 other residents in the building by first name? You see them in the hall and you say, hi Margie, hi Mary Ann, hi Julia, hi Frank. Okay, great. How many know 20? Oh boy, people are getting around. Let's go the other way. How many know at least 5? Okay. How many know nobody else? Okay, good. So everybody knows somebody. That's what an informal thing could do, and you could have a series of those, and you could have someone to help you lead it, or some of you could decide to lead it, and figure out how can we get to know each other. And there's lots of games that can be done around that. You can also...
You have to show a desire to want to know the people too.
Absolutely.
You have to give a little
Right.
indication that
I
you
mean-
want to be known.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we got people at Walnut Place at Northport who spend all the time in their apartments.
Yeah,
And that's fine,
sure.
you know?
If
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You're not obligated to step out the door.
No.
Okay. The other thing, though, you can do in those informal meetings is think about and talk about what are the issues that you see are need to be addressed, whatever those might be. Color of the walls, lack of toilet paper in the bathrooms. I mean, I don't know what it is. A whole variety of things. You get to know what those are. Some of which will emerge as individual issues, and some of which will be more group issues kind of thing. Then, after those informal meetings, and remember, this is just my suggestion. You don't have to follow this. You can do it differently. You could have some formal meetings with all of you and begin to look at what I call bylaws. Everybody know what what bylaws are? Pretty much, bylaws are kind of rules that groups follow. We call it in the United States, ours, the Constitution, I think. Something like that. Usually states the purpose and so forth. I brought some sample bylaws with me.
Yeah,
Did you pass them out?
I didn't yet.
Okay, we've got some sample bylaws. We don't need to go into them right now, but there are some sample bylaws, both that HUD has, that I have. You can go on the internet and find sample bylaws of almost any kind of organization you want to do. So my suggestion is that then you get together and you say, put a committee together that said, let's develop some bylaws. And you can use samples, you can steal from things. I love the internet because I can steal stuff off of that all the time, make it my own. But you want to make it your own and decide what rules should you have in that. Then you ought to have a date to say, we're going to formally vote on that by everybody in the building. You can pass those bylaws out. You can post them on the bulletin boards, however you want to do that. You can have discussion groups before the election, and then have everybody come together on a certain date, or not come together, but I mean have a what am I trying to say here?
Quorum? No.
No. An election, a secret ballot, that's what I'm trying to say. A secret ballot and see if everybody likes the bylaws or not. And then once the bylaws are adopted, then you can hold an election, find out who wants to be on the council. Walnut Place has 9 members on the council, 9 seats on the council, I should say. 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, the resident council at Walnut Place did not exist. It had fallen apart. There were lots of reasons for that. We called the residents together, said, do you really want to have a council? They said yes, so we did another election. People ran. On the first ballot for 9 seats, we had 9 candidates. So who do you think got elected? All nine of them. You know, one person voted for himself, and he was the only one that got. He was the only vote he got. Okay, so you know, not the best kind of thing, but it worked. And within a couple of months, a couple of folks dropped off. They were down to 7. They stayed together pretty much like that. And ended the year, I think, with 6. I don't remember exactly that first year. Last year, we had 13 people on the ballot. 9 got elected. By the second or third month, we had 7 left. By the end of May, I think we had 5. Something like that. Is that 6?
I think we never got below 7.
Never got below 7. Okay. So you're going to have some attrition. People drop off. The council, if you can put in your bylaws to have a way to replace those folks if you want to. Then once the council is elected, at their first meeting, my suggestion is that they do an orientation. Margie could do it. I can do it. Others could do it from BHP. Learn things about it. One of the things that Walnut Place has done, which I don't know if I passed out.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
And there should be enough, I think.
Yeah, there should be enough. These are called ground rules. You know, you remember the old phrase that said how to deal with the world, everything. I learned everything about that in kindergarten. That's kind of what these are. So they're ground rules that the council actually established many years ago, but the councils have continued to use them. It's just simple behavioral kinds of things. Things like don't interrupt, don't use foul language. One of the really primary ones that's very important is that at council meetings, individual issues about individual people does not come up, should not come up. If Frank is having a problem with Mary Jane, that's really an issue that needs to go to BHP management, not something that should be brought up and discussed at the council, in my opinion, because it can be very divisive. But other issues about things that go on and that you want to go on in the building could come up. So the ground rules are something very important. So then let's go back to the process here. The council is chosen. The members get together. They choose their leaders. Generally, groups like this have a president, vice president, secretary, and a treasurer. And then with Walnut Place, they have other people that they appoint. There's a kitchen coordinator. Kurt is the garden coordinator. What else do we have over there?
Library.
We have a library committee. They have a computer club. They're part of it. There are other kinds of things you could decide. There's going to be a new position to be considered soon about appearance of the building and making sure that people don't throw things away they shouldn't. So there's lots of things the council can set up and do. My advice to you is that every member of the council should have a job. So you just try to create a job for most folks, or at least have some of the things be co-led, so that you got two leaders. Because people get sick, lives change, things happen, and you don't want to have a person who has lots of history suddenly disappear. So that's my kind of suggestion. Oh, then they would decide when they're going to meet. And where, and my suggestion is that you always have an open meeting, never close the meeting, because you're not going to talk about individual issues. You're going to be talking about issues about the building and your life here in this community. So then you always have an open meeting. Hold it someplace where most of your residents can come. This room is probably too small. I don't know if you've got a place that's big enough. Walnut Place is fortunate that it has a huge community room. You can come there if you want to. No, not likely.
Not actually.
Not likely. But certainly, open meetings and invite all the residents. They publish the agenda 3 or 4 days beforehand. Then 2 or 3 days after the meeting is held, the minutes are published and put on the bulletin board so everybody can see those. So everything is out in the open, clear for people to see what went on, et cetera. So that's kind of my suggestion on how you might go about this. There are other ways you could do it. And you together today might say, gee, let me figure out another way. My suggestion is you use some way, some fashion that works, but not to the exclusion of others. Always invite everybody in the building. Put a notice on every door. I don't care if they don't open it, if they don't see it, if they throw it in the trash. You can say, we put a notice on every door. I publish a newsletter every month about various things, and invariably somebody will come to me and say, well, what about this? And I said, well, it was in the newsletter. I didn't get the newsletter. Well, I know you did because I know the person who stuck it on the door. They just didn't look at it. And it happens. Communication is you're going to be, if you haven't already figured out, with all your wisdom in this room, all of us who are over 60 and maybe even over 70, we have a lot of wisdom. We know that communication is the biggest thing, to say the least. Okay, so that's kind of my spiel. Kurt, you want to add anything along the way?
No, I think you've done a very good job. I
Oh,
would like to say
don't compliment me, just add something.
That there is one notorious resident council that is trying to be egalitarian, and they have not elected officers, and they're handling funds without a treasurer, and they don't have a secretary. So, yeah.
You talk about Northport?
No, I'm talking about Canyon.
Oh, Canyon Point. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. The thing is, there's probably 1,000 ways to succeed and probably 10 ways to fail. And that what I just explained to you was pretty much guaranteed failure.
Northport, the little place that has 50 units, has a council whenever they get 10 people together, and I'm the chair. Now, I don't like that. I don't think that's appropriate, but they refuse to elect officers. They refuse to elect leaders. They do have a person who manages their checking account. And so when they have something they want to do, like hold a potluck, they call a meeting, get 10 people to come to the room, and they decide how the potluck's going to get done, and they authorize money to be spent. Now that to me is kind of like the far end of the continuum to some degree. To some degree, there may be another one on the other end. I don't know, complete chaos maybe. But that just gives you another example of how it can be done. Other questions, concerns, issues? Yes, sir.
A quick temperature check.
Okay.
Are people too cool or too warm or just right now?
In this room?
Yes, in this room.
I'm fine.
I think it's hot.
It's warm, yeah, I feel it's warm. I'm just gonna open the windows. Keep going.
Okay, great. Somebody concerned about the environment, yes?
Do I understand correctly that everyone in this building can belong to the resident council? Is that correct?
No,
Oh,
Yes,
no.
they
It's
gotta
not.
be elected.
Well, they can be elected to the council.
oh,
But
okay.
when you have a council meeting, it's your 9 members who vote. Okay, you don't.
Okay.
But everyone can
But
come to
everybody
the
can.
Everybody can attend, right, right.
all open information.
Right.
It's never about
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a board of education meeting where you have the board and the administrators, and then you have other people who come to watch.
Right. Your council can decide how they want to have, for lack of a better word, public input. Input from the other people in the building. Walnut Place, you do it in the beginning of the meeting, right?
Yeah, we always, as a courtesy to anybody that's a resident or even a visitor of any sort, we call the meeting to order and ask them if they have anything to say, so they don't have to go through all the boring machinations of the meeting.
I think,
It's just a courtesy.
Yeah.
I learned that from going to the commissioners' meetings at BHP.
now I do think that Walnut Place does allow residents to speak up during the meeting. Let's say, for example, there's an issue about the library, and there's a member in the audience who's not a member of the council who has an idea about the library, like if, at the
Absolutely.
pleasure of the president or the presiding officer, who that might be, that person can speak. And now, we do say in the rules, I think, that you should only speak for 3 minutes. You know, 3 minutes is a long time, a long
Or
time.
less. 3 minutes or less.
3 minutes or less, correct. You don't have to fill it, that's true.
Get a little hourglass.
Yeah, we have done that, we have done that before, because some people are verbose, that's true.
I will say that we've gone through, in the 2 years I've been on the council there, we've gone through a lot of machinations about Robert's Rules of Order, or just, I myself like the British parliamentary procedure where you yell at each other, but we've kind of backed out from that. We're kind of in a gentle middle now.
Yeah, I'm kind of a big one on doing motions correctly. And every year I give a little 5-minute training. Is it 5 minutes? Maybe it's 10, I don't know. 5-minute training on how to do motions. You know, I move that such and such and such and such, and Mary Jane seconds that and so forth. I'm a big one on that because I think you need to have that. I like to see at the end of the meeting, the motions reread so that everybody knows what happened at the meeting, so that you can be sure you heard it twice. You can say you heard it twice and this is what it said. Because how many times have you been in groups when somebody walked out of the room and said, thought one thing and everybody else thought something else, or half of them, you know. So read the motions, you know. Yes?
So am I to understand that when the council gets together, that everyone in the building is invited to be
Yeah.
present?
Yes?
Okay,
Correct.
All meetings are open,
Right.
okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
period.
In terms of, for either the purposes of BHP or the RRC, are there any minimum requirements for our, whatever group forms here?
Don't think so. I don't think so. Now, I need to tell you, I should have actually said this in the beginning of the meeting. BHP has operated for years with the guidelines from HUD about resident councils. As we move away from HUD and some of the HUD regulations and stuff, we are going to be developing our own guidelines about resident councils and our relationship that should go on between them, so that we don't get encumbered by some of the HUD stuff. But that is yet to be determined. So at this point, no, there aren't any. All of you have, well, many of you have experienced committees and worked with groups, et cetera, so you kind of have a feel how you'd like to see things done. That's why you should have meetings to talk about and develop your bylaws so that you come to a common agreement about that. And my guess is that by and large, BHP is gonna work with you on that and be a part of that. That's the part of the partnership, I hope, that we can develop with you.